exciting times at Katie's garden because we're planting trees. And planting trees is exciting because they get bigger than us and they have the potential to live longer than us. So it's a legacy planting. It's a really positive mark that you're leaving on the world, and I find that really exciting. So it's a bit of a controversial topic. You'll find different people have different opinions. We're not entrenched in our views at Katie's garden. I think there's enough arguing in the world without the gardeners getting in on it. So we're going to be showing the methods that we use, but we will mention others as well. So we've got here our tree. Now you can only do bare root planting in the winter time, but ours have been planted up into pots, which means that in theory you can plant them any time of year. I wouldn't do it when the ground is frozen or when it's waterlogged, and I also really wouldn't advise doing it in the height of summer because it's so hot and dry. It's a lot of stress on the plants, and you know, if you think about it, they're pretty busy in the summertime, most plants. They're trying to grow lots of shoots and leaves, maybe trying to fruit and flower. They could really do without you giving that extra bit of hassle of trying to settle into new surroundings. Whereas if we look at this tree now, it's not really doing a lot. It's not got a lot on its plate. So it shouldn't really be out of its way for you to be putting it into a planting hole. It can hopefully focus all of its energy into putting a new root system. And when you're planting trees, the root system is what it's really about. That's what you're always thinking about, because that is what is keeping the plant alive. So first thing to do, before anything else, give it a good watering, about half an hour beforehand. That gives enough time for the water to really sink all the way through, for the roots to suck it all up, gets them strengthened up, less likely to be damaged when you're moving them about, and hopefully gets them in the mood for exploring as well. And it should make it easier to get out the pot. So your first decision to make is what shape your hole is going to be. Now some people will argue that the square hole is better, and the theory on that is that basically roots are lazy. They're going to go with whatever is the least effort. So if you have a round hole like that, the roots will be da-da-da-da-da. They get to the bit where you haven't dug it out, so it's a bit tougher soil, then they'll just curve round and they'll just stay there, and they'll keep going round and round and round. They're not spreading out, they're not well anchored, and they're drawing on quite a small area to find all their water and nutrients. So the idea is if you have it square like this, the roots will get to there, and that is just too much effort for them to do a right angle turn. So they go, well, I might as well carry on through them. Now, in newborn, we have a very light sandy soil. So I think that any root that cannot be bothered to work its way through that would not be worth having. But it wasn't any extra effort to dig out this hole in the square shape, so might as well, nothing lost. Now the next thing that people have different views on is whether you should be adding any organic matter. That's things like composts, manures, soil conditioners, and it's from the same school of thought that you want to encourage the roots to spread, so you don't want to make life too easy for them. And if you've got all of this nutrient-rich filled hole, that the roots will go num 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 num, oh dear, this is rubbish soil, I'm just going to stay put here. But again, our thinking is based on the fact that we have this really rubbish sandy soil, and so we think the plant is going to need a bit of help. Now you can see here, as I said, this has been potted up. It's not that long since it's been done, so effectively it is a bare root plant really, but we are within the time zone for it anyway, so that doesn't really matter. Now something else some people like to do is adding root builders. These aren't things that we sell at Katie's garden, but it is something people like to use. Traditionally it was bone meal, and that is very high in phosphorus, and that's one of the three main chemicals that trees and any plant needs to grow. They're the ones that do the roots, and so we're back again on the roots being really important. The other ones, nitrogen, which is for the foliage, and you have your potassium for the overall health of the plant and the fruits and the flowers. So as I said, we're adding in a bit of goodness, but rather than just making it a pure whole, we're mixing it in. So we haven't done our own scientific studies on this. Oop. Timber. So the thinking on this is that it's giving a graduation. It's starting off with a nice rich soil, and then it's graduating through this that's mixed up, and then it will get itself further along into the normal soil, which hopefully won't feel such a big change to it. Now, spade is good for helping you find the level. I've got a stake here as well, actually, that will be even better. So it's just helping to make sure you're getting it at the right height for the ground level. So get that in there. Now, when I'm adding the goodness, I'm keeping that more lower down. I'm not going to add anything much at the top because you don't want to encourage the roots to come up. You want them going down. So the further spread out they are, the better. Now, what I was adding rather than the bone meal was mycorrhizal fungi, and that's got ever so popular in recent years. Been a lot of study in that, and it's something that occurs in nature, really abundant in the soil, and it's kind of how all of the plants communicate with each other underground. So by adding that in, the idea is it's sort of like a social lubricant. It's introducing it to the wider plant community, although at the moment, this is our new garden, there's not a lot of plants to make friends with, so I don't know how helpful it will be, but I don't think it's any harm. So I said, this is much less improved soil now. This is virtually normal garden soil, and you think, oh, well, I'm nearly there now, but actually we need to firm it down. This is when you find it sinks. Now, you're not trying to immobilise the plant, you're not trying to concrete the poor thing in place, you're just trying to get rid of any big air pockets and just get it nicely stable, anchored down. This is when ideally you have a friend to stand lots of different directions and tell you if you're getting it in straight. It's a bit like, if you remember Christmas time, getting the tree in the stand. I think actually I've managed to get that pretty good. Get that across there. Now, the next thing people disagree about is whether or not you should stake your tree. And again, our thinking is very much based on this really loose sandy soil, that it's a bit of an ask for the tree to stand up to everything. And if we have a pan around, we can see we're pretty exposed here. In fact, it's such a good windy spot that there's wind turbines in the direction of Martlesham Heath there, the BT tower. So those winds are really going to keep blowing through, and so the plants need a bit of help. Now, there's various different ways you can do it. We just go with a single stake and the tie, and we've gone with diagonal. And what you're doing is, I think the prevailing wind is somewhere over there, but our most problematic wind is coming in that direction. So what you do is you have the top of it facing into it. If you think when you're walking in the wind on the seafront, you're kind of bracing into it. So that's what that's doing. You get the tree stake. These are the ones we sell. You can even use an old pair of tights though. Now, you might be thinking this is like a belt loop. But what this is actually doing is you put one bit around the tree and that loops through like that. So it's like a figure of 8 you're making. And so your tree would be in that. And you pull that as tight as you can in, and then the buckle then goes around the stake. And again, you get all that nice and tight. And it's really important you check that every few months to make sure that nothing's rubbing, because you really don't want anything getting damaged on that. And then the last thing to do is give it a good watering. Going with a full watering can for this. And when you're doing the watering, make sure you're giving it a really good soaking. You don't want to encourage the roots to come up to get the water. So you might find you're having to do this probably once a week, pretty much for the first year. You might have to do it twice a week during the summer. Hopefully by next winter it'll be pretty well settled in. And there we go, our new trees.